I noticed I was reading up on both of you that you both have an interest in music. Richard, you in fact have a fund that involves that, and Christina, you say you learned leadership from music. Let's start with you. I'd love to hear more about how you learned leadership from music.
Oh, it's very simple. So I'm a course director and orchestra director, where you get all of your musicians at 7 o'clock, typically after work, and for 3 hours you need to allow them to focus all their energy and just park all the problems by the door and then get present. And frankly, part of my leadership journey has been that. Inspiring team, holding people extraordinarily accountable. If you don't know your music, no, you cannot come on stage to the concert. Being very clear and setting expectations. The concert is the 15th of December, so dates are clear. And also establishing a level of team accountability. And I believe that people come together in these high-growth settings and high-performing teams because they want to help each other. They believe in the mission, and there's a great deal of camaraderie and peer pressure in that.
Fantastic. Richard, tell us about your fund.
Yeah, sure. I have a music fund, the Richard Scase Music Fund, to which I contribute a proportion of my fees at corporate events. There's nothing to contribute today because there's no fee. For exactly the same principles that Christina is making, my view is, well, I've always had a passion for music, is that how encouraging young people to learn a musical instrument and to play, it's a big band. It makes a change from the rock bands, 3 or 4 piece bands. It's a big band. And I want to protect that heritage. And bringing these people together to learn to play the saxophone, the clarinet. The real purpose of that is to protect that heritage, but the real purpose of that is to develop the talent, of course, but the real purpose of it, I'll get to the point, the real purpose of it is to develop self-confidence in public, is to develop the ability to, the purpose is to encourage personal creativity within the context of working with others. In other words, to demonstrate how you can only be really successful by working with others. Your talent emerges out of working with other talented people. What I really would like to have done is to set up a Premiership soccer club, because that's exactly the same principles, of course, is that you can only be a really highly talented player if you work and play and pass the ball to other highly talented players. But I couldn't afford the £300 million for Manchester United, so I settled for setting up my music fund with the same objectives.
Close enough, right?
Close enough, yeah.
Niels and Emma, do we have any questions from the SMS line or from Twitter for our speakers?
Yeah, we've got all sorts of things coming in.
Great.
A direct question. What have we got? Richard, there was lots and lots of praise for all your energy and new insights on what's happening with entrepreneurship. And somebody asked if Stockholm and Helsinki are the new hotspots for entrepreneurs in Europe. What is happening in London? What has happened to London, Berlin, all the other cities that were the hotspots?
Sure. Yes, and it's funny, I was thinking that I didn't, I think, fully explain the point. There is a quantitative basis for that statement. All my statements can be quantitatively validated. I could put the stuff up on the screen, but that gets boring. And that is in terms of the rate of business startup, in terms of high-valued activities. High-valued activities, because you can have business startup in terms of street cleaning, which is highly valued, of course. You can have startup in terms of low-technology jobs, which are very important in any society. But these are value creation jobs. And we find that Stockholm and Helsinki have the highest rates in areas like medicine, in areas like, indeed, I forgot to mention, the environment, in issues to do with creativity, high technology aspects of that sort. Comes higher as per head of business enterprises and as per head of the population. Then, indeed, London, Paris, Milan, those places we tend to think of as centers of creativity. What is also, I think, interesting, and just be very, very brief, is that in terms of kind of creative hotspots, there's now a global division of labor almost. And that is that Milan very much in terms of fashion, London in terms of media, London's very much kind of the cultural capital of Scandinavia, as you all know, because you go on weekend trips there, and Stockholm and Helsinki very much in terms of biotechnologies, which I think we're going to hear more about today, and also in terms of online technologies. just to add a point to what Christina was saying in terms of the development of the business in China, what is interesting, of course, in terms of China, it is shifting now very much from low technology manufacturing capabilities to becoming very high technology. Many of us do not appreciate the fact that China now is the second biggest investor in R&D in the world, surpassing Japan and now only second to the United States, and the biggest investor in nanotechnologies. Scientists and technologists who in the past were working in the United States are now returning to China. China is developing a very serious, as is India, very serious high technology businesses and encouraging, of course, the entrepreneurial cultures that go with it.
I'm interested in staying in that part of the world, Christina, and briefly discussing the power challenges that are faced in emerging markets. I know where I'm from, for example, we're seeing a proliferation of edge devices that are very cheap, which is very important, but the problem is powering them. How far away are we from solving those problems?
So battery technology is available, actually, and what has happened is all the battery manufacturers have been very focused on the laptop market, where there's higher margin and greater opportunity, frankly, for growth.
Right.
The battery industry as a whole, and it's very interesting, it's projected to be by 2020 a 200 billion euro market.
Wow.
So there is capacity coming in line. It is completely ripe for innovation. There will be multiple solutions. You will have batteries that are thinner, smaller, bigger, all kinds of chemistries, all kinds of mechanical opportunities. All the basic patents in the lithium-ion field, for example, were created in the 70s and 80s. They have expired. And our company and many other companies have taken advantage right now, and there's still lots of space to go and innovate in this space where the opportunity to empower the next generation is almost always tied to the interface, and then second to the power source.
Very interesting.
Just had a very quick, Christina, if I may, is that I'm old enough to remember, I mean, there was a time when it was going to be argued that batteries were finished. There would be no need for batteries in the world at all.
Absolutely. Pascal was actually already tired. Don't go into physics, it's all done.
Niels, Emma, perhaps we have time for one more question?
Okay. So one guy just tweeted, what is your feeling on wireless electricity?
Oh, there we go.
Christina?
Yeah, wireless. So there is a lot of opportunity surrounding inductive charging, which means basically the vision would be you have an electric car that drives into your garage, and there you have basically inductive, so basically a coil that you drive into. And for all of those who use science majors, you will have electric fields, magnetic fields, right? And it is not clear yet what the impact is on the human being. We know right, so I like data truth. I don't know if that came across. So I think we need to think about that a little bit. We had a big scare, if you recall, with the telephones, the mobile phones, when you hold them to your ear, and we actually demonstrated that that side of your brain became a little bigger. Is that good?
Is this a bad thing?
Is that bad? We
that.
don't know, because it takes a long time to study that, and now we almost all have headsets.
Yeah.
So maybe that signal is a little lower. But to have massive inductive charging in societies deployed way before we understand the human impact is probably not a great idea. The idea, however, is of course very attractive, that you drive over some streets that have inductive charging and you basically charge as you go through, is of course very interesting. But these questions are really big questions, and I think for entrepreneurs, if I may, is just to, if that's a vision that we want to contribute to, we have to break it down in smaller parts. Because I think also we risk in this really chaotic and economic environment that we make huge bets that take enormous amounts of capital and then fall flat. So in the electric car market, for example, as you may know, in the beginning of the 1900s, there were quite a few electric cars that were quite capable. But the industry selected to go after fossil fuels for a lot of reasons that were, at that point in time, very obvious and good. Today, we would have viewed those differently. Now we really want to get off fossil fuels. And what happens? Well, a major brand uses lesser technology and energy storage, has a catastrophe basically in one of the test beds, and the whole policy market goes, there's a problem with electric cars. Well, maybe not. Maybe it was just that one. But we have to be very, very careful as we go into emerging markets, I think, on charging, on inductive, on large energy systems, just that we think this through and take very guarded steps on setting expectations right with the market, with the policymakers. We will disrupt this energy paradigm.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, just to add to Christina's point, which I think is very important for today's event, is that, I mean, in terms of the big idea, let the big boys, big girls as well, deal with that. I mean, because they're such high-risk things. I mean, let them focus with the real kind of horizon, over-the-horizon breaking discoveries, because the risks are so high. From the entrepreneurial point of view, let them do that, and then feet on the ground, how can we do that better, cheaper, or more differently? But let them set the agenda in that sense. We then come in and mop up.
Certainly. Guys, that's all we have time for, unfortunately. Before you leave the stage, we do have some gifts for you that have been prepared. So we have coffee mugs and we have coffee beans. So you can come and collect them over here. Richard, I'm sure this is yours. Your mug says Minister of Happiness. So there you go. We didn't, unfortunately, have time to discuss your concept about countries having ministers of happiness.
Right,
Perhaps we can discuss that during the coffee time. And then, Christina, be part of the solution. So there you go. Thank you very much. And don't forget your coffee beans. Ladies and gentlemen, Christina Lampe-Önnerud and Richard Scase.
Thank you very much.
Very nice.
Tack så mycket. Nice to meet you.